Two friends just made a podcast. Two good friends just made a podcast. Two friends just made a podcast. It's called Culture Bucket. Two friends just made a podcast. Two good friends just made a podcast. Two friends just made a podcast. Culture Bucket, Georgia and Alex.
Shazam,
Yes.
bam, wham, and hello, and welcome to the 16th episode of Culture Bucket.
I was trying to do
Culture
it. with
Bucket. I'm
you.
George.
It's the 16th episode.
16 episodes we've done. Yes, and I am your erstwhile host, George. I don't know what that means. And my other host, the other host is Alex, who's here as well. Hi, Alex.
Hi.
Hi.
How are you?
How are you?
Oh.
Oh, no. Awkward. Jinx.
Awkward.
So I'm pretty good.
Yeah.
It's been an interesting week. We're recording this the week of the American election, so
Yes.
it's been a tense, dramatic week with a broadly positive finish. I think. How are you?
Oh, I agree with you. It's the 8th of November and everything is looking better. And Kanye, I don't know. I think he put Kanye 2024, so I think he's going to try again.
Yeah, but he'll try again in the laziest, worst way possible, so it has no impact on anything. So,
Yeah.
Sure.
Well done, Kanye. But yeah.
So yeah, but we're not here to talk about politics.
Absolutely.
We're here
not.
to talk about popular culture.
Yeah.
This week, specifically, we'll be doing our top 5 novels.
Yes.
Or top five fictional books type thing. Maybe one of mine's a novella rather than a novel, but yeah. So, first, let's do culture catch-up. Yes?
This is Culture Catch-Up Time. This is where we talk about what we've watched, what we've read, what we've listened to, and probably some other stuff. Culture Catch-Up Time.
So, what have you been doing this week, George?
Well, Alex, this week has been, as we just mentioned, quite a tense
Yeah.
week. Up until yesterday, it was largely up in the air what was going to happen in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And England went into another lockdown this week, which is where I live. So it's been quite a stressful week. So I'm going to take culture catch up to strange new places this week.
Ooh.
Yes.
I'm
I've got
excited.
one film that I watched. I watched one film.
One?
And then one, and then I've got some other ideas.
What
so we'll see
happened?
what happens.
One film.
One film I watched called The Lodge from last year or this year, depending on which website you look at. It is a horror film starring Alicia Silverstone, Riley Keough, and Richard Armitage.
Sorry, like every horror film's like The Lodge, The Mist, The Shadow, The Balloon.
Oh, that's a great one.
Is it?
Yeah, The Balloon's really good. But The Lodge came out like last year in America, I think, and then never came out in England. And all the reviews for it were like, it's great, and it's a bit like Hereditary, and I love Hereditary. We've talked about that enough.
Yeah.
And I was like, I can't wait to watch The Lodge, and then it just never came out. So this week I ordered it from Germany on eBay, so I could finally watch it.
From eBay?
So, yeah, I went on eBay and I looked it up, and there was a German copy on Blu-ray, so I got that. And it's basically, there's one bit in the movie where it goes 6 months later, and it says 6 months later in German, but other than that, it was just like watching the English version, so it's fine. It was in English, and I really enjoyed it. It's not quite as good as Hereditary, but it's an interesting film. It's a very like what people call elevated horror, which I don't really is a term that's a bit ridiculous, but it's like films like Hereditary, Midsommar, Get Out, those kind of basically just means like a well-made horror film.
Okay.
But never mind. And it's about two children whose parents have split up, and their dad wants them to kind of go on holiday with his new partner, so they can try and sort of get on with her. And then it explores what happens when they go to stay together in this isolated lodge in the snow somewhere. And it's really good, and it's got a lot of twists in it that I don't really want to spoil, so there's not much more to say than that, other than Riley Keough, who plays the new partner of the dad, is fantastic in it, and I'd previously only really seen her in Under the Silver Lake, which she's only in a small amount, so it was nice to see, a bigger role from her and see how talented she is. She's very good. She has to do a lot in it as a sort of former cult member who's trying to impress these children.
Okay.
And yeah, it's dark. It goes to some really weird places, and I enjoyed it a lot. And that's the only film I watched this week, and it's the only new thing at all that I did.
Wow, like that's
other
kind of
than-
my standard.
I know, because I have been watching something this week and listening to stuff, but because of how stressful and tense everything in the world was, I kind of needed some comfortable things to go back to and to go on to. So initially I finished Hades, the third week of talking about that amazing video game.
Yeah.
I completed it, and then I completed it again, 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 and then I completed it again. I finished it 6 times this week. It's amazing.
Wow.
And I love the heck out of that game.
Okay.
Wow, it's so good. Then I went on Amazon Prime and I watched all of the first season and half of the second season of Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Is it on Amazon Prime?
It's on Amazon Prime. Have you watched Buffy, Alex?
Yeah, but a long time ago. So if it's
A
on
long
Amazon
time
Prime,
ago.
I think I might go on that ship.
Oh, it's like wrapping yourself up in a comforting, warm blanket.
Is that all you needed this week? Just being wrapped up in a warm blanket.
I needed to be wrapped up and told everything was going to be okay, and Buffy Summers was the person to do it. It was so. It's just. I'm not going to stop. I'm going to keep going.
How many series are there?
There's 7 seasons, and then there's 5
seasons.
seasons of.
I keep getting really bad seasons. How many seasons are there?
Yeah, I mean it's not. It doesn't matter too much, but in America they say seasons, and in England we say series. I guess is the difference. Anyway, there's 5 seasons of Angel and 7 seasons of Buffy, so there's plenty of content to get through for me.
Wow.
So, with respect to the fact that I've spent my entire week watching Buffy the Vampire Slayer, I'm launching a new feature within Culture Catch Up, and it is my definitive ranking of the Buffy the Vampire Slayer characters. Are you ready, Alex?
Yeah. Okay.
Good. I went online. I looked up all of the characters all of the characters whose actor is credited in the opening titles throughout all 7 seasons. If you see what I mean.
Okay. Yeah.
So there's 12 characters who get a credit in the opening titles. And before anyone points it out, I know that Jonathan is featured heavily in the special titles they did for Superstar in season 3. However, Danny Strong doesn't get a credit, so it doesn't count. So he doesn't count. But there was one character actually who only got credited in the titles once in exactly 1 episode.
Mm-hmm.
And they do count. So in at number 12, we've got the worst possible character of all time on Buffy, Riley Finn.
Okay.
Do you remember Riley, Alex?
I just wait a second. I'm gonna get ready because this is gonna be a roller coaster, I think. So I'm getting ready with the computer, and let's see. Because I think you are fired up today. Riley Finn.
I'm ready to go. Riley Finn.
Riley Finn. I do not remember him.
Riley Finn.
No, I do. Yes.
You do?
Yeah.
He was Buffy's love interest in season 4 and 5.
Yeah.
And when she went to college, and he was secretly a member of the Initiative, and he was unbelievably boring. and had no redeeming qualities whatsoever. So in he goes at number 12. Of these 12 characters, is the only one that's genuinely dislikable, in my opinion, or that I genuinely don't like, rather than just, rank lower.
Okay.
So we'll get him out of the way straight away. Mark Blucas, I'm sure, is a good actor, but Riley Finn can just do one. Then, in at number 11, we've got the wonderful Tara. Do you remember Tara? Played by Amber Benson, Willow's love interest.
Yes, I remember. Beautiful.
Tara, good character,
Mm-hmm.
unlocks a lot of new feelings in Willow. Their relationship is beautiful.
Yeah.
And the journey she goes on with Willow is really nice. And I like her, but she's just not in it that much. And Amber Benson isn't the strongest actor in the world. So her character sort of doesn't totally work. But
Okay.
she's okay. She's got some nice episodes. The episode where her parents come, or her family comes, because they've got this thing where in her family, when you turn 20, you become a demon. That's a good episode because she thinks she's about to turn into a demon. And it turns out that actually they've just been gaslighting the women in the family all this time. And she's not going to turn into a demon at all. It's just the way the men control the women in that family. How awful. It's a great episode. They all defend Tara and they say they're part of our family now at the end, Willow and Buffy, and it's great. Number 10, Dawn Summers. Do you remember Dawn Summers?
Dawn Summers, yes, I remember.
Buffy's sister. Where did she come from? Who knows? Why does she only turn up in season 5? How strange is that?
That was
Played by
strange.
Michelle Trachtenberg. There's a lot of people that hate Dawn. I think she's okay. She's got a difficult job of suddenly joining the cast in season 5 as seemingly Buffy's sister and having people, believe that. And I don't know. I think she's good. Then, controversial choice, in at number 9, a character that's very popular with a lot of people, Xander.
Ah, Xander, yes.
Xander. Do you remember Xander?
Yeah, I just said, oh, Xander, yes. What? Yeah, he's one of the main characters, isn't he?
He is one
from
of the main
start.
characters.
From the
Yeah,
start.
and you know what? In season 1 and 2, he's a problematic boy. Is Xander? I have not noticed before what an issue Xander is in this series.
Okay.
He is totally in love with Buffy,
Yeah.
and everyone knows it, including Buffy. And he kind of makes a big deal out of it all the time, even though Buffy has made it very clear that she's not interested, and it's just kind of weird. And he's just really mean about all the Angel and all the other boys that Buffy likes during the course of the series.
Yeah,
And
but
it's
if
just
you're a
like, why would you
teenager-
continue?
You're a teenager and you're in love with someone, and, you can't really control your feelings as a teenager.
Yeah, but I feel like as he grows up and becomes older in the series, his attitude doesn't change. Like, he leaves Anya at the altar when they're meant to get married. He's just
Spoiler.
kind of a selfish guy. Yeah, spoilers for Buffy. Sorry, he's a selfish dude, and I don't know. I've gone on. He's got some funny lines, but also I've noticed that he says all these funny things, but no one in the show ever laughs. He should. Eventually, somebody should take a hint that maybe they're not very funny, even though he is. I don't know. Nicholas Brendan's good, and I do like Xander, but I mean, he's a real problem as well.
Okay.
Number 8.
Yeah.
The girl whose heart is broken by Xander, leading to the introduction of Anya, Cordelia Chase.
Sorry, I haven't watched it in so long. I have to check.
Oh, you'll know Cordelia.
Oh, yes. I remember her.
Yeah, starts as nasty, spoiled, horrible girl, but her character goes on a real journey, especially when she joins Angel and becomes a main character on Angel. And she is probably the reason why she's so good is because Charisma Carpenter, who plays her, is an amazing actress and really puts in a fantastic performance. And you really believe, that this person could go on this journey and change and become the person she becomes as the series goes on. And I like her. I like Cordelia. She's very charismatic. She's cool. Number 7, Anya, former vengeance demon, who is summoned by Cordelia to take vengeance on Xander when she catches him cheating on her, and then becomes a human and falls in love with Xander. What a complex web they all weave.
What a complex web.
What a complex web. Anya's cool. She's scared of rabbits and it doesn't make sense. And she's good at running magic shops as well. Oh,
Okay.
she's. I like Anya. Now we're getting into big hitters. Number 6, the one and only Angel.
Yeah.
Come on. Pretty boring guy to start with, but he comes into his own when his soul gets taken away and he becomes a bad guy. And then he goes off and gets his own TV show. And David Boreanaz does a good job, especially considering apparently David Boreanaz, who plays Angel, was only discovered because somebody saw him walking his dog.
Really?
And they just were like, "Oh, you're a very handsome man. You should come." And then he's actually he's a good actor. He's really good in Buffy. And
I've never watched Angel
cool.
actually.
Angel's really good. Angel's underrated, I think. It goes much
Okay.
darker than Buffy in some places and much weirder as well. There's some really strange episodes of Angel.
Okay.
Yeah, it's great. Number 5, another vampire, slightly higher on the list, Spike.
Spike.
We all
Is that
love
the guy
Spike.
with the blonde hair?
He's got blonde hair. He's a sort
Yeah.
of a Cockney guy, but he's being played by an American, so the accent's a bit all over the place. Starts off as a fantastic bad guy, sort of slowly over the course of the series becomes something of a good guy.
Mm-hmm.
Is a real strange dude.
Well, it was always like a thin line between him being a bad guy and a good guy, wasn't it? Like
Yeah, so like in series 4, he gets a chip put in his head where he can't physically hurt any living creatures without feeling pain. So like that starts him on the journey to becoming a good guy. And then eventually, I think at the end of season 6, maybe he gets given a soul again, which makes him properly a good guy. And I think in Angel, then he has a real big redemptive moment as well. But he's just very funny. James Masters puts in a good performance. He's a really funny character. He was only meant to be in it for about 10 episodes. And in the end, everyone kind of liked his performance so much they kept him around for the rest of the series. And he's great. I've just gotten to the point, I'm at the point now in series 2 where he's in it quite a bit. And his arrival into Buffy brings a lot of energy into Buffy and makes it better. Like you can really tell the difference between season 1 and 2 with his arrival. Number 4, Oz, played by Seth Green. We all love a bit of Seth Green in our lives.
Always.
And when I'm talking about Xander being like a problem and we're saying, oh, teenagers are like that, Oz is like the good version of a teenage boy.
Yeah,
Oz is like
definitely.
a nice, good guy. He's good for Willow.
Yeah.
He's unfortunately a werewolf, but we can't have everything in our lives.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, I really like Oz. The only thing that holds him back is that he's only in it for about a season and a half or so before he left to go and star in Austin Powers movies. But he's a good guy. Like the first episode Oz turns up in, he's wearing this really bright blue shirt, and it just dresses in a way that's very different to other characters in the show and just feels really fresh. And then a few episodes later, he's wearing a really bright red shirt, and there's something about him that just feels new and fresh. And again, similar to Spike, brings a new energy to the show, which is good. In at number 3, you've got to give it to her, really, to be fair. It's Buffy herself. Come on.
Oh, Buffy's at number 3. Okay.
Buffy's at number 3.
Yeah.
She's great. Everyone loves a bit of Buffy. There's not much more to say than that. Sarah Michelle Gellar is absolutely amazing as the character. And there are episodes, I don't know. She's really good. She's really, really good. But there are 2 characters that are better. Number 2, the one and only Giles.
Yeah, of course.
Buffy's watcher, classic British guy,
Yeah.
stiff upper lip, librarian, lot of good lines. The point I'm at now in season 2 is where they're just starting to discover his past as Ripper,
Okay.
where he was, a kind of troubled youth who messed around with magic and did some bad things. And did you ever hear about they were going to do a TV show or a film called Ripper about like him as I don't know if it was going to be a prequel or just a Giles show, but there was going to be a Giles spin-off at one point, starring Anthony Stewart Head, I think.
No,
and
I don't remember that.
No, they kept threatening to do it for years and then never did it, and it's a great tragedy because he's good. He's really good.
Do you want to know a little bit of trivia of me and Giles?
Go on. Hit me.
When I moved to England when I was 17, I started working in a farm shop in the countryside of Bristol, basically.
Yeah.
And he lived in the surrounding areas, and he used to come shopping in my farm shop, and I served him a couple of times.
Really? Anthony Stewart Head?
Yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm jealous. Good times. All right, well, it's pretty obvious who my number one character is going to be because I haven't mentioned her yet. It's
must be
Willow.
Willow, of course. Yeah.
She is and always will be my absolute favourite character in Buffy and one of my favourite characters in all of popular culture. She's so great.
Yeah.
Like season 1, I mean, Alison Hannigan, for starters, is just, oh my God, she's the best.
Yeah.
Then season 1, Willow is really kind of shy and nervous and geeky and quiet. And the journey her character goes on throughout the 7 seasons to becoming this, like, the most powerful character in the show, like stronger than Buffy and this really powerful witch. And then she's a villain at one point because of horrible things that happen. And it's just great. She's like, her journey, in my opinion, almost more than Buffy's, is like the core of that show. And it's I just adore it, and I love her.
Yeah.
And I think the first truly brilliant episode of Buffy the Vampire Slayer is early in season 2. It's an episode called Halloween, and it's where they all turn into the Halloween costume that they're wearing.
Yeah.
So Xander's dressed up as a soldier, so he turns into like a soldier. Buffy's dressed up as like a 17th century princess, so she turns into that and doesn't know. Like, neither of them remember who they were. They just think that they're a soldier and a princess.
Yeah.
And then Willow had brought this like sexy ghost costume, and she'd gotten really self-conscious about wearing it because it was like, you know, her whole midriff is revealed and stuff like that. And she looks really good in it, but she's really nervous to look like that. And suddenly at the last second, she just puts a sheet over her head and, you know, is like a traditional ghost with the eye holes cut out so nobody can see her. But then when the magic activates, she dies. And when she gets up as a ghost, she's wearing the original costume. And it's kind of a real thing of her becoming, like, by the end of the episode, she has the opportunity to put the sheet back on, but she chooses not to and walks off dressed. And it's about her, like, you know, accepting herself. Oh, it's just a great episode and a great journey for the character. And I love her, and she's the best. Oh. Willow.
Aw.
Willow, why? So yeah, there we go.
Oh.
You should watch some Buffy the Vampire Slayer as well, and then we can talk about Buffy the Vampire Slayer more.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize this was going to be a bumpy, a Buffy the Vampire Slayer special. But yeah, I'm glad that you are revisiting that.
Yeah, 100%. It's so good. Next, last thing of my culture catch-up. Again, Strange New Places. Musically, something happens to me about once every 3 or 4 years where I remember...
Yeah. No.
I remember that the band Arcade Fire exists.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Because
right.
what I then do is I then listen to nothing except Arcade Fire for about a month, and then get to a point where I'm like, I can't ever listen to them again, and then I have to wait about another 3 years to like
Amazing.
let it go back and refresh. So I'm currently, one of the things that happened in this big election was that they premiered a new song on Stephen Colbert's show called Generation A.
Okay.
And I watched the video of that on YouTube, and it's a pretty good song. And I was like, they're a good band. I like Arcade Fire. And so it started again. So all I've done this week is listen to Arcade Fire over and over again. And I absolutely love them. But I know it'll get to a point within the next month where I kind of can't stand them, and then it happens again. But for now, I love them. So welcome to my second mini list in this episode, definitive ranking of Arcade Fire albums. How excited are you for this, Alex?
Like,
yeah, I can tell.
Yeah,
I can tell.
I'm really excited.
In at number 5.
You seem you're having a moment, George.
In at number 5, their previous album, Everything Now. I hated this album when it came out. It had the most irritating promotional campaign I can remember for a major band, where they kind of launched a company called Everything Now, and it was meant to be this like satire of consumerism, but it just felt cynical in a way that Arcade Fire normally feel more optimistic, and I wasn't into it, and I didn't like it, and it kind of coloured the album for me. Going back to it now, it's actually got loads of decent tunes on it, and I like it, and it's not their best album, but I can get behind it. Number 4, second album, difficult second album, Neon Bible. I got into Arcade Fire between their first and second album, so this was like the first big new Arcade Fire album for me. And I liked it, and I bought the special edition CD thing of it at the time. Lord only knows where that is now. But ultimately, again, it's maybe similar to Everything Now. It has slightly more sort of cynicism behind it, and it's slightly darker than the best Arcade Fire stuff. Although all Arcade Fire stuff is tinged with, there's like a bitter sweetness to it, but I don't know. I don't know. I like Neon Bible. I love all these albums, but it comes there. Number 3, their debut, Funeral. Amazing tracks on this album. Rebellion Lies in particular is such a good song from start to finish. It's a classic. I love it. Number 2, the double album. Controversial. Some people weren't so keen on it. I like it. Reflector. It's a good album. Good songs, good tunes. It's very different and weird. There's a song on this album where they play, to introduce the song, they play like an audio recording of Jonathan Ross introducing them, going, okay, here now, amazing music from Arcade Fire. And I feel like I recognise that voice and I know who that is, but every time I listen to it, I like to imagine what like Americans or Canadians must think when that, like, who do they think is speaking there? Because it's, and then at the end he goes, oh, that was brilliant. That was an amazing song. And I love that it's such a strange kind of flabby album that has all these odd moments on it like this. And there's another bit that starts with him just talking as if he's doing a live gig. And it's a weird, strange album, but I love it. Then at number 1, their masterpiece. It won the Grammy for Album of the Year and then inspired a Tumblr page called Who Are Arcade Fire because loads of people had never heard of them when they won the Grammy. The Suburbs. It's an incredible album. It's absolutely perfect. I adore it. It's got songs in it like Month of May, Ready to Start, Modern Man. It's good stuff. So yeah, there we go. Arcade Fire. They're great. That's the ranking of their albums. It will never change. There will be no. There will be no.
There will be no changing. We'll talk about it again in 3 years' time.
Yes, or I suspect they're about to release a new album, so maybe when that happens, but we'll see.
Might be amazing.
Okay, Alex.
Great.
That was exciting. I'm sure you'll agree. What have you been doing this week?
I've been following our normal pattern.
Okay.
So watched the film in preparation of just to make me a little bit more anxious about this election. I watched a film called Bombshell.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yes.
Right.
Do you know what it is? Bombshell?
Bombshell's about the Fox News scandal.
Yes. It's a film directed by Jay Roach, who directed Meet the Fockers and Austin Powers Goldmember, Meet the Parents, all like kind of weird films like Dinner for Schmucks, which is not a bad film. But this one seems very different from what he's directed before. Great cast.
I think he's trying to do the Adam McKay thing, you know, the Adam McKay who directed Anchorman and then in recent years has directed like The Big Short and the Dick Cheney movie. Yeah. I think he's trying to I think it's his attempt to do that, to move into like more legitimate films, I guess. Yeah, great.
So it's basically it's about the Fox News scandal where quite a few women accused Roger Ailes of kind of a toxic atmosphere in the network, and it was quite a challenge to take this man to court because, you know, he's part of Fox News, is a very powerful man. The first person that came through was Gretchen Carlson, who kept being demoted until she got fired. And then after her, a few women came out, and then in the end, Roger Ailes got fired. I thought it was a really good film. Great cast: Charlize Theron, Nicole Kidman, Margot Robbie, John Lithgow.
Yeah. John Lithgow. Lithgow. I think Lithgow.
Amazing in it. Kate McKinnon. Then also Bridget Lundy Payne is in it. Which, surprise.
Who's that? I don't know them.
Of course you know them. They were in Bill and Ted.
Oh, from Atypical.
Yeah, from Atypical and from Bill and Ted.
I didn't remember their name.
Yeah, Rob Delaney, like really, really good cast.
Oh, wow.
It was interesting because they wanted to, I think what the director was trying to do was to make it as realistic as possible. So Charlize Theron, Nicole Kidman and John Lithgow all had prosthetics to kind of look what like actually real.
Yeah, John Lithgow's almost unrecognisable as Red
Yeah,
Rails,
because I didn't
isn't
know it was him, and then I went to check. It's like, oh my goodness, it's him.
he? Yeah.
And what I liked is just they actually use real footage, which you don't really see that very often in films. So, for example, there's a scene that Charlize Theron's character Megyn Kelly has to interview Donald Trump. After she asked him a few questions at a debate sometime before, and he then accused her of, being on her period. And
Oh, I remember that, yeah.
how they did the interview was like you could see Charlize Theron as Megyn Kelly interviewing Donald Trump, but being Donald Trump. And it just kind of
Okay.
showed how accurate the film wanted to be to real life.
Yeah.
Margot Robbie's character, Kyla Pospisil. Margot Robbie's character, Kyla Popsicle.
Right.
She's not actually a real person.
Right.
She was basically like the embodiment of all the things that he was accused
Right,
of.
like an
in one
amalgamation of all those
character.
people into one. Right.
Yeah,
I get
yeah,
it.
which was really interesting. And the director, when she does the scene, I read some trivia, and the director, when she did the scene where she has to pull a skirt up, because he only wanted to do for her to do it once, because he didn't want her to humiliate
Yeah.
her, which is pretty decent.
Yeah.
So he wanted just to take one shot of that. He didn't want her to repeat the shot many times,
Yeah.
which is very different from maybe old film directors where they would make their actors do the scene a million times to get a reaction.
Like Stanley Kubrick to Shelley Duvall in The Shining, for
Like
example.
Stanley Kubrick. Yes, exactly.
Right.
So I thought that was really good. Although you don't necessarily need to see that. You can imagine it. But one thing that I read Margot Robbie thought was that she didn't think that somebody saying derogatory thing to a woman was harassment. And then she thought, well, it is, isn't it? Like the realization as a woman that you don't need to put up with that kind of language, because I think women have put up with that kind of language because like, oh, well, they just said that because that's men.
Yeah.
But you don't have to put up with it.
Yeah.
And in a way, her realizing that is not something that is right or correct kind of made her want to do the film more.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure that the scene where she pulls up her skirt is so graphic. You see what you see. I don't know if it's just to kind of show people that even if he's not touching her, the act of doing that is so mortifying that, because it's just, if you think about it, she's just pulling her skirt up.
Yeah.
But in reality, it's a horrific moment.
Yeah.
And so I'm not sure if he wanted to show that to kind of show how horrible it is.
I haven't seen it, but from how you're describing it, sounds like it is important that he shows that, because maybe to have it described, it wouldn't, like some men probably wouldn't see how awful it is without being shown
and
it.
probably some women.
Well,
because I feel like,
that's true.
you
That's
only
true.
like paid your compliment, or you only asked you to pull up your skirt. You could have said no. But that I think it's definitely a good film to watch because it kind of shows you how there's a thin line. Well, there's not a thin line. There hasn't been any line, and now the line, they're putting barriers up, because I think it's horrific what women had to put up in the workplace if they want to get promoted. In fact, that comes up in the film, what they had to do to get promoted, the fear that you might have in that moment that something happens. So yeah, I thought it was a brilliant film, and it made me even more. I watched it like just, I think a few days ago before the results. I was like, I definitely wanted Trump out, because the fact that a president tells a news reporter that she has her period, I can't believe such a person can be the president of the United States or the president of anything, And after seeing Rudy Giuliani in Borat and this film kind of making me even more angry that these men, not all men, these particular men, that have so much power that can do pretty much anything they want to women. It's just horrific. I hate it. But yeah, so I think it's a good film. And I watched it, made me even more angry. I'm glad the results are out and Trump is not the president anymore. Well, at least officially. We don't know what's going to happen on Monday. He's threatening.
Yeah, well, he's still the president until January,
also
so who knows
he's
what
threatening
he'll do.
to sue or something.
Yeah.
Which is amazing because, Americans are so scared of communism and dictatorships. And Trump is pretty much acting as a dictator. So let's go.
Yeah. Anything else for culture catch up?
Sorry. So I watched a film and then I listened to an album, completely random album, and it's called What Kinda Music, and it's an album by Tom Misch and Yussef Dayes. It was randomly recommended on Spotify. I don't know why, because I don't really listen to jazz. I don't really listen to R&B. But yeah, so Tom Misch is a guitarist and an R&B producer. And
Right.
Yussef Dayes is a jazz drummer, apparently one of the best jazz drummers in the world. So it's a really, really interesting album. From the title, What Kind of Music, you go, well, what kind of music? Because it's so eclectic. And there's jazz, hip hop, electronica, and from what I read, there's a lot of jamming. So their songs kind of were created together in jamming sessions, which I thought it was really interesting. And you can kind of hear that. And it's got great. Tom Misch has got great vocals. He's got really good voice. And is a really, really well done album. The drums are beautiful, and he's Yussef Dayes is amazing. In fact, I'm gonna follow them a little bit more because I never heard of them before, didn't know who they were, and so I'm really glad that Spotify recommended me this album. It's really atmospheric, really immersive. It's just got really good vibes and it's a good song. I listened to it about 3 or 4 times this week because it's really, really good. And I definitely would recommend it. Tom Misch and Yussef Dayes, What Kind of Music? And then, I thought, I haven't listened to some K-pop in a while. And Blackpink have just released an album and it's called The Album. So I listened to that.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's a Blackpink?
Blackpink is a K-pop band. Yeah, a K-pop band. Formed by K-pop is Korean pop, which is now very, very popular in the West. And them and BTS kind of broke the West, haven't they? I
guess they have, yeah.
Yeah. And they're formed by YG Entertainment, which is the biggest K-pop, what were they called? K-pop entertainment company. And they have loads of bands, and my favorites were Big Bang, which I loved, but now they're covered in controversy, and 21, which I also loved. And I haven't really enjoyed any K-pop bands since then, but I thought, well, come on, give Blackpink a go, and I didn't mind it. It was good. Yeah.
Okay.
It's yeah, it was good. It's just they know what in YG Entertainment and K-pop companies know what the market wants. They know what the market needs. They follow. They produce good songs. In this album, there is a song written by Selena Gomez and Ariana Grande, and also there's Cardi B in the album. So they're just getting people that are popular everywhere, and they've created a good album. I think, and it's their debut album.
It's their
what
first
else?
album.
Yeah, debut.
Wow.
Yeah, I think they just released songs until now. Yeah,
Interesting.
yeah, and they're just good, entertaining. You just bop your like head, and it's good. I would listen. I would recommend to listen to it if you never listened to K-pop. This is a good example of how K-pop works. Classic, just singing Korean with some like English words, and then there'll be a rapping bit done by a Korean girl or a boy, and it's good.
Yeah? Is it going to
Yeah.
convince anyone that doesn't like K-pop?
Maybe.
Maybe.
You never know. It's
true.
got also David Guetta is one of the producers in it as well.
No, thank you. Let's move on.
Well, I thought I'll give it a go because I think we should talk about all cultures, and I think K-pop is so big now in the West, and I wish Big Bang would have been the ones breaking the West. But the first one to actually be really popular in the West was Psy with Gangnam Style.
Yeah.
And then
True,
then unfortunately, Big Bang, which was another K-pop band, boy K-pop band, they had to go in military service. So before they became super popular abroad, they had to break up, and then so now we have BTS and Blackpink. Not the best, but okay. I think but yeah, I would recommend to listen to this album. It's not bad.
Okay, cool. Blackpink.
Blackpink. And the last album I listened to, it's been a very busy week with album listening.
Yeah.
Is a new album released by Fleet Foxes.
Oh,
Do you know Fleet
Shore?
Foxes? Yes.
I do.
Yes. Which was released on the 22nd of September, which is the autumnal equinox. So it's kind of like so if you like if you like Fleet Foxes, you'll probably like this album. It's good, classic Fleet Foxes sound. It's a bit nostalgic and full of emotion, and I liked it. It was good. It was a good listen, but it's Fleet Foxes, so it's kind of. Do you like Fleet Foxes?
So I did listen to this album, and I've listened to other Fleet Foxes albums, and if I'm being totally honest, in my opinion, Fleet Foxes are like Bon Iver with all of the interesting production ideas stripped away.
Yeah, I guess you're. Yeah, I guess I can agree with that, because I was listening to it and I thought, why don't I listen to Fleet Foxes more? But just because they do blend into the background and you don't really.
Oh yeah, background music for sure. I mean, and I'm not being. I don't hate them or dislike them. And now I'm on a podcast talking to myself by myself. That's chaos fairy. No, I don't dislike Fleet Foxes, and they do have some fun songs, but it does blend into the background a little bit for me. And like if I'm in the mood for Fleet Foxes, I'm almost definitely in the mood more for Bon Iver, so I tend to just listen to Bon Iver. And have you ever listened to Father John Misty?
No, I haven't.
You should maybe check him out. He used to be, I mean, years ago, I think on maybe their first album, maybe even before their first album, he was the drummer, I think, for Fleet Foxes.
Okay.
And then he went off in his own direction, and he does these really kind of quite strange albums. I think mainly piano lad. I think he plays piano a lot. But yeah, he's quite interesting. Father John Misty, worth a listen. But yeah, so overall positive on the new Fleet Foxes album.
Yeah, it's okay. I agree. I'm glad you said that, because I think I was wondering if there was something was missing, and it is. It's just something. Something is missing from Fleet Foxes. They're not the greatest, but I enjoyed the album. It's quite autumnal, so it's good with the mood right now. So yeah, but
Definitely. Yeah.
yeah, and that's it for me. Really, I've yeah.
So you mean to tell me that you didn't watch Avengers Endgame this week?
Oh no, no,
Alex,
I need the time.
You've had a week. You've had a full week.
Yeah, I had a full week, but also there's been things this week,
I like listening to
work,
Blackpink.
editing, drawing. George, I haven't been playing this same video game 6 times.
Such a good game. I love it. Cool. No, that's great. Awesome. I want to watch Bombshell, actually. I should give that a watch, finally.
Definitely.
And talk more about that.
Mm-hmm.
So, sit down at the back and be quiet and get out your book, because it's time to discuss your homework. Now. Homework time.
Homework time.
Homework time. It was my job this week to watch the film Shoplifters, due to your adoration for the Japanese film director Hirokazu Koreeda. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Yes.
Yep. Also coincidentally features one of your favourite actresses, Kirin Kiki.
Yes.
Yeah. Shoplifters is a movie, came out in 2018, I believe.
Yep.
2018. Won the Palme d'Or at Cannes Film Festival, so a very highly critically praised film.
Mm-hmm.
Quite controversial, I think. I think it's the only time a Japanese film has won a big award like that, and then the director hasn't been congratulated by the Japanese Prime Minister. I think I read something like that.
Yeah, because it wasn't really what the Japanese government want people to view Japan as.
Yes, it presents a view of Japanese society that maybe they'd rather people not be aware of so much. It's a film about a makeshift family of 6, well, initially 5 and then 6 people who come to live together in the grandmother's house, but she's not actually their grandmother by blood in any way. They call her grandmother, and they kind of live off a combination of her pension and then things they shoplift from shops, hence the title of the film, Shoplifters.
Mm-hmm.
And what do you think of Shoplifters? Is it one of your favourite Koreeda films?
No. I like it. I really like it. It's sad, but I think when I watched it, I didn't feel like it had the same essence that Koreeda usually has in films. But I'm not sure, because when something has got such a hype, my expectations are so high. Although I like it, it's definitely not my favorite. I like the idea of it, and I like the fact that family doesn't really have to be related by blood, but also the character of the dad is so difficult to like that in a way you kind of are always kind of a bit on the edge, I think. Yeah.
I really liked it.
Oh, good.
I thought it was really good. I know what you mean, because I think because I've seen one of his other movies, Our Little Sister, which is about a group of 3 sisters whose dad dies, and then they discover that they have a half sister they didn't know about, and they kind of bring her into their family. And it's quite interesting how similar the 2 films are. Like, a lot of the themes he looks at are very similar in terms of, like, you can choose your family in some ways.
Yeah.
And looking after each other and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Obviously, Our Little Sister has much less of a dramatic plot in a way, because there's no crime, there's no criminal element to any of it. It's just seeing some people's lives, whereas Shoplifters is very specifically about people who are living on the edge of society and living through crime, which, possibly cynically you might say that's why it got so much more attention than some of his other movies, because it has a bit more of a kind of hook to it. I mean, what I really liked about it, and I think what came across, like, in terms of you really liking him as a director and as an auteur, I guess, is that he is so clearly interested in character and in the little moments between people and the little interactions people have.
Yeah.
And he's got absolutely zero interest in, like, conflict or big controversy. So not to give away too much of what happens in the second half of the film, but some quite big dramatic events happen in these people's lives. But the actual drama, the actual, people being in court maybe for different things and stuff like that, none of that happens on screen. It cuts across that completely to just show the aftermath for these characters and how what is happening to them affects their lives. And I think most films would not be able to resist a good courtroom scene, and he just doesn't have any interest in that at all. He just cuts across that completely, and I really like that about his work, is that he really does focus in on the moments in people's lives that kind of define them. So that's really cool. I really, really enjoyed it. Kirin Kiki is fantastic in it, as are all the actors.
Yeah.
The dad, like you said, the dad is really difficult to like.
Yeah.
But I liked him. And I love how him and his wife, they have got a backstory that's led to them being part of that family that's only very kind of briefly touched on in the second half of the film. But it gives you so much insight into why they are living this life and why they are the way they are and how they've kind of come to find each other. And it's fascinating. It's really cool and interesting. And yeah, I'm very glad I watched it. It's like with it's quite a long film. It's 2 hours long. And again, even though it is about these people who shoplift, it doesn't have a great deal of conflict or huge dramatic moments in it. It's understated like all of his work. But again, because he does it so masterfully well, it doesn't feel boring at all. So, no, it's great. It's a good movie. I think Our Little Sister is better, but I really liked Shoplifters. Okay. Your turn.
So I had to watch Sicario, which because one of your favorite directors is Denis Villeneuve.
That's the one.
Yeah, and so the film is about this FBI agent who is enlisted by a government task force to help the escalating war against drugs in the border between USA and Mexico.
That's
basically.
the one.
That's pretty much it, isn't it? Like she has this FBI agent has been asked to help. So the film stars, first of all, Emily Blunt, Benicio del Toro, Josh Brolin, Victor Garber. Yes.
Garber?
Garber, who has looked like this for the past, I don't know, like he hasn't aged. Like he's always looked like this. It's
No,
bizarre.
I know who you mean. Yeah, he does look exactly the same and everything.
Daniel Kaluuya, I can't believe like two British actors are starring in an American film, doing extremely amazing American accents. So that was really good. So the film it starts in a really kind of interesting way. And which kind of sets the kind of tone of the film. It starts with the FBI doing a raid, and whilst they're doing the raid, they find something in the house which is pretty horrifying, and that kind of sets the tone of the film. It's go go go. Like there's no sleeping, there's no eating, there's drinking some beer, but it's pretty much go go go, isn't it?
And very oppressive.
Yeah, and nerve-wracking. The camera is very present. The camera becomes sometimes one of part of the film, in the sense of sometimes it's the car going up and down. Sometimes it's just the camera is always present. It's pretty interesting that it's just kind of like a part, or maybe a character, which I liked very much. Really big wide angle shots of the vastity of the desert, pretty much. So lots of shots from above, which kind of add to the kind of dauntingness of the film, of what's going to happen next. What is this all about? That was really good.
ominous, I guess you might say.
Yeah, very good. It's always feel like they're being observed. Everybody feels like it's being observed, which I thought that is such a because of the war on drugs and the kind of situation. I think that's actually quite accurate to how portray the situation. Like everybody's observed. Everybody knows everything about everything. I feel, and
Yeah, definitely.
Benicio del Toro is
Oh.
cold. I read some trivia, and apparently they cut 90% of his lines, and I think that was the best thing they could have done.
Yeah, he's very
because-
silent, right?
Very silent, but so effective. Very like you don't know because they were saying that he was at one point he was going to explain to Emily Blunt everything that happened to him, but he said why would he? Why would he just meet this woman and tell her stuff? And that is so effective. That's how masterful of an actor he is. So I thought that was really good, and the fact that the director actually listened to that, and I think he is the best character in the film.
Benicio del his character is really fascinating and interesting, and what he does by the end of the movie. Emily...
what he does by the end of the movie, I had my hand, I was literally, my hands were in my head, like, what? No, that didn't just happen. No. So that was good. The soundtrack is really, really good. Added really good sense of kind of the dauntingness of the film.
Well, it's taken the soundtrack helps to take what could just be a standard kind of FBI agents or whatever trying to do drug busts on the Mexican border. It takes a film like that and turns it into, like I said last week, almost a horror film. Would you say?
Yeah. And the unpredictability of it was pretty daunting because there were certain things that were happening, like when she goes to the bar and she meets someone, and then what happens next.
Yeah,
just like really unpredictable, which I wasn't expecting at all.
Yeah.
Emily Blunt, amazing. How she portrayed that character, that I just, my mind on her changed completely from the beginning to the end. So she's a great actress or actor, great actor. The scene when they're going into the tunnel with the night cam, with the night vision camera goggles, and you see the footsteps. Don't know if you remember that. Like, he chooses some incredible ways to portray certain things.
Yeah.
Which I thought was really, really effective, and kind of not really knowing what's happening, where are they going, what is going on. I thought, what I liked and I appreciated is the film doesn't actually show any proper acts of, it's quite violent, but it doesn't show the violence. The violence happens off screen. You hear it, you don't see it. And that for me is something that I like, because my mind just goes, oh my goodness, what is happening? When Benicio del Toro is in that room with a big bottle of water, and then the camera pans out, you go, and then you just hear, you go, oh, okay. And so my mind went everywhere. And I think that is really effective, because if your imagination can take you places that, well, other places that you're not really, I don't know. I think imagination is really important.
Yeah, and it's brave for a director, I think, to be willing to give the audience that kind of trust and faith that they'll go along with you.
Yeah, and in a way, you know that the war on drugs is terrible, and you know the war on drugs is it's brutal. You don't have to see it. You know it. So I feel it's a really intelligent way to kind of like say, it's brutal and you know it. I'm not going to show it, but you can imagine it. And I think he did a really good job with that. All in all, I found the film really good. I thought it was a really good film. It was effective. There's no real ending because it hasn't ended.
Exactly.
Because the war on drugs carries on. Who's in the right, who's in the wrong, you don't know, because it's just such an messed up war that one, because it's both parties, America and Mexico, are heavily involved, and also, if America just did other things, maybe the war on drugs would stop. But that's another conversation to have.
It is,
but no,
indeed.
I thought it was really good. Good cast, good people. I liked the way the shots he did. What's his name? I liked Denis Villeneuve's kind of big, wide angle shots, looking down, feeling like you're always being observed. Like you're part of the film, and the scene where they are at the border. I thought that was brilliant.
Yeah, I was going to say that's like a big standout sequence in the movie where they're in the cars going back across, and you can just feel the tension just rising with each moment.
Yeah. So I thought it's good, really good film. I enjoyed it, highly enjoyed it.
I am very glad.
Yeah,
it would be interesting for you to watch the sequel.
Is there a sequel as well?
Yeah, there's a sequel called Sicario Soldado.
Okay.
Emily Blunt didn't come back, and Denis Villeneuve didn't come back, but Benicio del Toro and Josh Brolin do come back. And it's not a bad film, but I think it's interesting to watch that to kind of get a real sense of what that director brought to the first film and what that kind of movie is without that voice behind the camera, if you see what I mean.
Yeah.
So it's an entertaining film, but it is like an entertaining kind of action thriller rather than the very ominous, odd thing that he created with the first film.
Yeah, because it was an odd portrayal of the war on drugs, but I think it's quite a realistic portrayal because it's not always action packed. It's also taking one person from one place to the next and trying to not get killed, and how many people are involved in this, and you don't know who to trust, who not to trust, who's watching you, it was good. And I love Benicio. He's amazing.
Yeah, he is.
He's so good.
He really is.
Yeah. So I liked it a lot.
Good. I'm glad. You should watch some more of his movies.
Yeah, I will.
I'll try.
I will.
Particularly
Denis Villeneuve. Is he French?
He is French Canadian, I think.
I can't believe I said Dennis. Oh my god, I'm so
Dennis,
British. Oh, Denis Villeneuve.
Denis Villeneuve.
Villeneuve.
Yeah, so what would be good? Prisoners. If you're going to watch another one of his movies, check out Prisoners with Jake Gyllenhaal and Hugh Jackman. That is
and also
good.
I have to watch Blade Runner 2049. So
yeah, well, that's a brilliant movie as well. Worth a watch. Ryan Gosling kills it in that film. Awesome.
Ryan Gosling kills it everywhere.
Yeah, he does. He's great.
He is the dude.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Our top 5.
Okay, awesome sauce. So I'll start in at number 5 for me.
Yes.
It's quite an obvious choice, but I can't do a list of my favourite books and not put this on it. So it's in at number 5. It is Northern Lights by Philip Pullman.
Oh, I've got that one as well.
Oh, have you? Oh,
yeah.
Is it at number 5?
Not number 5 though. No.
Oh, interesting. So should we talk about it now?
Of course.
Okay, it's the absolute best. I adore the hell out of this book.
Yeah.
It is the story of Lyra, a young girl who lives in Oxford in an alternate reality. Where everyone has a demon, which is like the physical manifestation of their soul. When you're a child, it can kind of form into the appearance of any animal it wants, and then as you grow up and go through puberty, it kind of settles on a permanent form. But Lyra's still a child, so her demon can change. Demon's name is Pantalaimon, and I think generally your demon will be if you're a girl, your demon will be a boy, and vice versa. Yeah.
Yes, if you're a boy, demon will be a girl. Yeah.
Yeah. And as she basically goes on a journey to discover the origins of something called dust, and it takes in kind of, even though it's a children's book, but it ends up kind of really looking in on religion, organized religion, and quite a lot of big themes, and it's quite critical of a lot of quite adult ideas.
Yeah.
And it really respects its audience to kind of go with it and understand it, which is really good for a children's book. And which
Yeah.
is why even now today as an adult, I still really enjoy reading it. And I read it every few years because it's the best. It's also part of a series of books called His Dark Materials. The original trilogy was followed up by The Subtle Knife and then The Amber Spyglass. And now in recent years, he's doing a new trilogy called the Book of Dust trilogy. The first of those was La Belle Sauvage.
Yeah.
And the second is The Secret Commonwealth, and the third isn't out yet, so we'll find out more about that in the coming years.
Hi.
Hi. So what do you think of Northern Lights?
I absolutely love Northern Lights. I didn't read it as a child. I read it as an adult, in my mid-20s, and I love the fact that it could be read by a child, and you could just imagine this beautiful world, and be read by a adult and imagine this beautiful world. I don't know how he writes things is so incredible, and the idea of having a demon that is there with you and you have to look after it, and to be separated from it then causes basically death. It's just kind of such a beautiful thing, isn't it?
Yeah, the demons, because I don't. Well, in the new trilogies, the demons seem to play a bigger part of the overall story, but in the original trilogy, they're important. But especially in that first book in Northern Lights, I don't know. The demons are important to the story, but they feel like they're bigger than the book as well in a way. Like they're just such an amazing idea, and you just, as soon as you find out about the world and it describes what demons are and stuff, you just feel like you want a demon of your own, and it's just a wonderful idea.
Exactly,
really
and that's I think how he does it. And I think Philip Pullman as a person, he's not scared to write for children about real things, about death, and about things that are wrong, and about adults being bad. He's not scared, and he's not scared of when you then further read the trilogy, he's not scared of showing kids growing up and having the feelings that they're going to have. And I think I really appreciate that about him as a writer.
Yeah, and his writing's very warm as well, I find. Like, it's very cozy to read a Philip Pullman book, particularly one of his Dark Materials books.
Yeah. And his
what's
voice
your
is very... His voice is very... Yeah.
It is. What's your favourite character in Northern Lights?
My favourite character in Northern Lights? Probably... I can never say his name. Sosby? The cowboy, basically.
Is it Lee Sotheby?
Sotheby?
Maybe.
Yeah.
I know who you mean.
Yeah.
With the hot air balloon.
Yeah, I love the fact that he has a hot air balloon, and he's just a nice man, and I like the impact that he has on Lyra, and I just always remembered him as just a really nice, kind-hearted man.
Lee
Scoresby.
That's
why I really liked him.
Lee Scoresby.
Lee Scoresby.
Like,
I love Lyra, and I love the kind of child she is, but it's kind of like, Lyra is my favorite character, I think. But I think after Lyra, because I think Lyra is such a cool kid that she's a girl, and she does her things as she does her things. She's not scared. But after Lyra, probably Lee Scoresby, because I think he's such a cool character. Yeah,
he is a cool character.
Who's your favorite character?
My favourite character as well. Well, like you just said, Lyra's kind of Lyra. But then if you separate her, I don't know how to pronounce his name, but Iorek Burnison, the king of the armored bears, was always my favourite character.
Yeah.
In fact,
the armored bears. Sorry, I just love the book.
My favourite thing, I think, in that first book is the sequence where she has to get his armour back for him to agree to join them, and then the idea that they have a demon, and for him his armour is his equivalent of a demon. It's more than just armour to him. I think it's such a beautiful idea. And then also there's just like, as a young boy reading that book, the idea of a polar bear with armour that could talk was the coolest thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I love Iorek Burnison. Panzer Bjorn, the king of Svalbard.
Yeah.
Amazing stuff. I love
it's
him.
just an amazing book. And when it ends, you just want to just go straight to the next book. You just want to know
Yes.
what's going to happen. Whoa, just beautiful. Yeah. Yeah. Great book.
Mm. Oh,
Great
good
minds,
stuff.
man. Great minds.
Indeed. What's your number 5?
My number 5, it's Blast from the Past children's
Ooh.
book,
Ooh.
which I love,
Ooh.
and I make my students love, and I think I put it in because I think it had such an impact on me when I was a kid and it could be so impactful on kids today, and I know with my students that I had to put it in, and it's Matilda by Roald Dahl.
Ah.
Yeah.
Aw.
So for if nobody knows what Matilda is a girl that is very, very intelligent, and she can do anything. She could do problems. She can read Dickens by the age of 5, and she has very not intelligent and not caring parents, and because of her intelligence, she tricks her parents a lot in a way.
Mm.
Yeah, and she
But
has.
they deserve to be tricked.
They do deserve to be tricked because they are awful to her, because Matilda is really lovely and all she does is read books and and she's got a lovely teacher called Miss Honey in her classroom, who wants her to go to a higher class, but then the headmaster, Principal Trunchbull, who's a former hammer throwing champion who flings children when she's angry. She doesn't allow her to do that. But yeah, it's just a lovely book, and I'll always remember it to be amazing. And I love the illustrations by Quentin Blake, which have always gone
Ah.
really together with Roald Dahl's books. And I love the way that Roald Dahl writes things. I think it's a lovely, incredible book. And I think it's my favorite Roald Dahl book. And that's
It's
Matilda.
It's probably my favourite Roald Dahl book, thinking about it.
Yeah, because it's just so good, and yeah.
It's just lovely, isn't it? It's just a lovely, wonderful book.
Yeah, it is.
A good choice,
think,
Alex. A strong,
and
powerful
I think
choice.
with Roald Dahl books, children can still read them now and still enjoy them now. And I think that's how amazing he is. And still, yeah.
Mostly, yeah. Yeah, he's a good author. He sometimes, no, I don't. I've got a massive problem with David Walliams and his children's books.
Okay, I've never read them.
So I had to read some once as part of my job.
Okay.
And he very much, I think, takes inspiration from Roald Dahl, but he does the thing that I think Roald Dahl did in some of his books, but now is less acceptable in terms of directly equating the physical appearance of somebody with their quality of their character. Do you see what I mean?
Okay.
So like ugly people are bad people and beautiful people are good people. Like the Twits is kind of an example of that with Roald Dahl.
Yeah.
But David Walliams does it David Walliams does it in a way where it's like working class people are ugly and gross, and he's it's very classist. It's just I just don't find it doesn't put the right messages across to children for me. And the only reason I bring it up in relation to Roald Dahl is because he gets the person who does his illustrations. It might even be, I don't think it is Quentin Blake, but the illustrations in his books look just like Quentin Blake illustrations.
Yeah,
and it all seems very crudely and cynically done in order to make him appear like a modern day Roald Dahl, and it drives me bonkers. I cannot stand it at all. I hate his children's literature. I think it's bad and evil and puts the wrong messages across to children. And some of Roald Dahl's writing is slightly problematic as well in that regard, but for the time he wrote it, I think it can be more excused, whereas David Walliams is doing this today, and it's just gross. But I adore Roald Dahl. Some issues coming up in recent years in terms of his anti-Semitism, which are awful and won't be defended, but his children's literature is not good. Yeah, he was an anti-Semite.
Oh, what?
Yeah, sorry.
I did not know that. I'm
and
sorry.
Not like an accused anti-Semite, like a self-confessed anti-Semite. Like he admitted to being an anti-Semite. Yeah.
Why? How did I not know that? George, you need to tell me these things. I put one of his books as my number 5.
But it's fine. I mean, it's not fine for him to be like that, but Matilda is still an incredible piece of work and a classic piece of children's literature. I've certainly got somebody on my list later on whose personal opinions I strongly disagree with. So, you know, the art is separate from the artist in some cases.
Yeah. So in this case, I do not condone Roald Dahl.
I'm
for being
sure
anti-Semite
anyone that's listened
all.
to enough of our podcast can understand that you don't condone Roald Dahl's anti-Semitism.
I did not know that. Why?
Yeah,
Just
it's awful. It can't, like, even at the time he was alive, it can't be excused. But he is dead now, so you know. Yeah. He's dead. He can't do any more harm, and some of his books are wonderful. And let's leave it there.
Okay.
And including Matilda, I wouldn't argue with you. I would have Matilda on my list happily. I just hadn't thought of it. And in fact, okay. So that's your number 5, yeah?
Yes, my number 5 is Matilda.
Cool. My number 4 is again an absolute. These are all quite nostalgic for me. These book choices, in a way. Because they've kind of defined different parts of my life and different eras of my life. This is one I read when I was a teenager and thought it was one of the funniest things I'd ever read. I fell in love with it and I still love it to this day. And it is The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Ah, cool.
By Douglas Adams. Have you read that book?
No, I haven't.
Okay. It's a sci-fi comedy book about Arthur Dent, an Earthling who one day wakes up and the Earth is demolished to make way for an interstellar bypass, but he is saved at the last moment by his best friend, Ford Prefect, who it turns out is secretly an alien, and they escape and go on adventures through the galaxy with the help of their companion book, The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, which leads them on their way, and they meet characters along the way like Zaphod Beeblebrox and Marvin, the paranoid android. And it's just a very funny book, and it contains the ultimate answer to the ultimate question of life, the universe, and everything, which is 42. And to this day, if anyone asks me what my favourite number is, I say 42, like the ridiculous nerd that I am.
Amazing.
Yeah. So yeah, I don't know what else to say about the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. The BBC made a TV show of it in like the 70s, I think, which is dated but quite entertaining. They made a film of it a few years ago with Martin Freeman, which is a bit less good, not really worth anyone's time. But the book itself is just delightful. Douglas Adams was a very funny man, and it just holds up. It just holds up as a really funny, entertaining book. It doesn't really care too much about any plot, although there are 4 more books after it. It's famously, like, the collection is called the Trilogy in 5 parts. And as it goes along, it gets kind of less and less good. But that first book is magnificent and wonderful, and just has some really funny ideas in it. And yeah, no, I like it a lot. You should read it. Everyone should read it. The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy by Douglas Adams.
Definitely.
42.
Great choice.
Thank you. 42. Oh yeah, because one of the heart, like, there's a big thing in it where they steal this spaceship called the Heart of Gold, which has, I think it's powered by, do they call it an infinite probability engine, to do with like the likelihood of the ship being anywhere in the universe is the same infinite probability, so they can kind of make it teleport across the galaxy. It's it's weird, and like there's a bit where it makes it creates a shield around it where anything can happen, essentially. So they arrive in this place, and they also make like a vase of petunias and a whale appear in the sky. And then there's this whole bit about just like as the whale is brought into existence, everything that goes on, everything that it thinks about between it appearing in the sky and then landing and exploding and dying, and in its head it's thinking like, oh, what's happened? Oh, I'm some kind of animal. I'm some kind of big animal. I'll call myself a whale. That's what I'll be. I'll be a whale. And what's this thing coming near me? It's big and it's flat and it's round. It's round. I'll call it the ground. Yes, that's right, the ground. Oh, it's coming up very fast, and it's just so funny, and I love it. It's wonderful.
Oh, that's amazing.
It is amazing. It's the best. So yeah, no, there we go. The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. What's your number 4?
My number 4 is my first of my 2 Japanese entries.
Okay.
You know, I love the author Banana Yoshimoto, yeah?
I do know you love the author
Yes.
Banana Yoshimoto.
And so I would have put her. She is not on my list anymore, which is crazy because I don't know. She introduced me to modern Japanese literature, and she's always been
She wrote Kitchen.
She wrote Kitchen, which is one of my favorite books. But this book, I had to make a tough decision. So this book made me make a tough decision about Banana Yoshimoto, which is kind of sad because I read, like I said, I was trying to figure out how many books of Banana Yoshimoto I've read, and I read all of her books translated into English or Italian. So
Wow.
I love her.
Wow.
But I really enjoyed this book, and it's a book written by Sayaka Murata, and it's called Convenience Store Woman. Have you heard of it?
No.
Okay, so Convenience Store Woman is about the story of 36-year-old Keiko Furuka, Keiko Furukura, who she doesn't really fit in. She doesn't fit in her family. She doesn't fit in school. She doesn't fit in Japanese society as what a 36-year-old Japanese woman should be doing. And she works in part-time in a convenience store.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Wikipedia page for the book, one of the first lines, it just says, it captures the atmosphere of the familiar convenience store that is so much part of life in Japan.
Yeah.
Is that true? Is that accurate?
It is accurate and true.
Wow.
And and that's why it's in it, because it just kind of reminded me, because I've read so much Banana Yoshimoto before I went to Japan, and then I read this after going to Japan. This kind of like made me really nostalgic, and it was so well written of how like the convenience store is, and convenience store is such a massive part of your life when you live in Japan. That's
Alex,
the first place.
You know me. You know how much I love a good convenience store in Japan.
Yeah, you spend so much time there, and I think at least when I got there, my first my first shopping for food was at the convenience store. The girl working in the convenience store basically knew me by the end, and when I left, it was really sad. That was my place. Hangover food, drunk food. Coffee in the morning, like anything was in the convenience store, wasn't it? It was just the best part.
Where I was living, the nearest convenience store was about a 5-minute walk away, and then during my first year, do you remember they built and opened in the space of about a month a 7-Eleven about 30 seconds from my front door, and it was I could go back to that apartment and live there for the rest of my life and only go to that convenience store and be just the happiest pig in the farm.
And it's about her life in the convenience store, and she follows and she can fit in this convenience store because she follows the rules of how to greet people, irashaimase, and stuff like that, and how many chopsticks she needs to put in the bag and how to put the bag. So she doesn't fit in outside the convenience store, but she fits totally in this convenience store because there are rules that she can follow, and it's about not fitting in Japanese society and trying to get away of not fitting in that society. And I think it's a brilliant book, and I love it.
A bit like Shoplifters.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, definitely. And yeah, it's she's she's happy, but everybody around her seems to think that if she did other things, she would be happier. Like if you should get married and you should have children, you should have a proper job, because in Japan, working in a convenience store is not a proper job. Like you could work 40 hours in a convenience store and they'll still call it part-time because it's not a proper job. So it's called like harubaito, and that's not what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to have a proper job.
But then
And
you do go into so many convenience stores in Japan where you can tell the people who work in there really take it seriously and want to do a good job.
Yeah, and that's what Keiko does.
Oh,
and it's brilliant.
I like Keiko. I love her.
It's brilliant. And the author is kind of autobiographical. So the author kind of like worked, I don't know if she still works, in a convenience store 3 days a week, and which in Japan they call them konbini. And
konbini.
And I love it because the convenience store was major part of our lives when we were there. We went out drinking and drank outside the convenience store. That was also a bar. It was everything.
It was
our food. It was our entertainment. It was just beautiful. And I really enjoyed this book because it just reminded me of that, but also it showed how Japanese society wants you to be a certain way and how you don't necessarily have to fit in, but the ways you don't, and also the ways you can avoid not fitting in. So I think it's a brilliant book, and that's why it just pushed away Banana Yoshimoto, which I'm really sad about, but I love it.
Cool. Yeah. It sounds amazing. Yeah. No, great.
Yeah. And that's my number 4, Convenience Store Woman.
Cool. Okay, good. Right, now, my number 3. So, if you were worried about the fact you found out Roald Dahl was an anti-Semite about having him on your list, don't panic, Alex, because I'm about to put somebody on my list.
Banana back in?
I'm about to put somebody on my number 3 spot who is far more problematic.
Okay.
My number 3 favourite book of all time is The Call of Cthulhu by H.P. Lovecraft.
Haha. Yes. Yeah.
What do you know about
Why is
H.P.
he problematic?
Lovecraft? Oh, God, so many reasons. Just the name of his dog is a start.
Was he not like a massive racist?
Yeah.
And like he wrote a book and like then you find out that the monster or like the evil force was a black person, a black
Now, this
woman.
this is something I have told you about this.
Yeah, you told me about this.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Yeah. But I know because of you told me.
Yeah.
Like I didn't. Yeah.
I have read the complete works of H.P. Lovecraft. I've read every novel, short story thing he ever wrote. Other than I think there's like some book you can get that's like little scraps of ideas he had. I've not read that, but other than that, I've read basically everything he ever released. I adore him completely. No, I don't. I adore his work completely.
Yeah, you don't adore him.
He as a person was deeply problematic. He was a racist. Some of his books, you've just described one there. I think that one's called The Medusa Coil. Horrible. Because all of his books, pretty much, or most of his stories end with the protagonist discovering something that drives them insane. That's kind of how most of his stories end. Yeah. And in the case of The Medusa Coil, the one you just referenced, it is his discovery that this woman he's in love with is a black woman, and he didn't realize it, which is racist. It is racist and indefensible even for the time in which it was written. However, that's 100% not the book that is on my list for many reasons, but that one primarily. He also has this ability to write, and it probably is fueled by a similar thing that fueled his kind of xenophobia, which, I mean, xenophobia and racism were rife in the time he lived, but equally there were people in time he lived that were against that, and he was not one of them. So, you don't defend him by saying it was the time, Some people say supposedly nearer to the time he died, he was sort of coming around on the idea that racism was bad, and maybe if he'd lived longer, he could have like reformed a bit. I don't know. His work is his work. He has this incredible ability to write about the unknown in a way that nobody else manages, and without the work he did in horror fiction in his time, people like Stephen King and Clive Barker and other huge names in horror in more recent years probably wouldn't have quite been able to do what they did without him laying the groundwork first. So I think he is incredible as a writer. The Call of Cthulhu is sort of his most well-known book, or his most well-known story. It concerns somebody, like a lot of his stories, it's about somebody discovering a trove of letters or manuscripts or documents and then reading through them to kind of discover this horrible truth that led to somebody else dying. And in this case, he's discovering the story of a cult that worships a strange old god. And it just contains all these turns of phrase that I adore. Stuff like things that these cultists say. One of them is, "That is not dead which can eternal lie, and with strange eons even death may die." That is just such... I just love it. I just love it. We live on a placid island of ignorance in the midst of black seas of infinity, and it was not meant that we should voyage far. Come on. How good is that? Or the one of the things the cultists say is, "Thunglui Muglonath Cthulhu Rilei Wagar Nagal Fatan," which obviously doesn't mean anything, but translated supposedly means, "In his house at Rilei, dead Cthulhu waits dreaming." How can he, if he's dead, how can he wait dreaming? It's so weird. I love it. I absolutely adore it. So the story is about this guy discovering the cult and kind of trying to get to the bottom of what Cthulhu is, and it talks about Cyclopean architecture and non-Euclidean geometry and all the wonderful things that Lovecraft does. And it's emblematic of all of his work, because really, he didn't write any full-on novels. The Curious Case of Charles Dexter Ward, I think, is one of his longer pieces of work, but I don't like it as much as these shorter stories. The Shadow over Innsmouth was another strong contender for this list, but ultimately I went with The Call of Cthulhu because it is sort of what he's named after. And also, because his kind of work is known as the Cthulhu mythos, because all of his novels supposedly take place in the same world where all of these great old ones, these ancient gods that we're not meant to know about, exist and drive people insane. And then Stephen King, all of his novels kind of are meant to kind of take place in a connected world. And again, he got that sort of idea, the impetus for that idea came from Lovecraft. And then in more recent times, the MCU, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, again, it's all this idea of a connected mythology that Lovecraft kind of really kickstarted that idea. And I think he has to be given a lot of credit for that. I kind of am a bit obsessed with Lovecraft and his work. It's deeply troubling and problematic, the personal views he held, but as a writer, he is to be liked as a writer only.
Do you think did he write about monsters and stuff?
Oh yeah,
and
definitely.
About the unknown?
Yes.
Okay. So do you think if you hadn't been hadn't been racist, do you think you would have been able to write that? Do you think that's connected?
I think it's definitely connected. I think if you're examining him as a person and him as a writer, his fear of foreigners, his fear of the other, certainly influenced his ability to write about otherworldly, surreal, unknown things. I think the two things are linked. If you're looking at him, academically, in terms of what inspired his work, but when his kind of personal views come really far into his work in stories like, I think there's one called The Murder at Red Hook, and then the Medusa Coil. There's one called The Street, which is awful. That's when it's those stories have no merit to them at all and are awful.
Yeah.
But stories like The Call of Cthulhu, and The Call of Cthulhu has some problematic, some troubling elements as well, but they aren't as integral to the plot as, say, The Medusa Coil or the Trouble at Red Hook. It's called that. But yeah.
Where is he from? Where was he from?
He was from sort of northeastern America,
Okay.
the United States. From kind of I don't think he was from Maine, but kind of that area of America,
Okay.
New England sort of area of America.
Interesting. It'd be interesting to read actually, because I've never. I know about Cthulhu, and I've heard of him from you and from other people, but I've never. I don't know. I never read him.
Yeah, I mean, I think when you read, I think when you read his writing and the way he was able to write and the turns of phrase he used and stuff, I think you start to see why he's still kind of a relevant voice in popular culture, even so many years after his death, and with so many problematic elements to him. His work is now in what do we call it? Him or his family don't profit from anyone enjoying his work now because it's in the public space. So it's just
Interesting.
Yeah. So what's your number 3?
My number 3 is a book published in 1985 by Canadian author Margaret Atwood, and it's called The Handmaid's Tale.
Okay.
Yeah. Have you read it?
Do you know, I've read about probably between 30 and 50 pages of it.
Okay. So maybe not your cup of tea.
No, 100% my cup of tea. I didn't stop reading it due to not liking it. I think it was due to it wasn't the right book for that point in time, if you see what I mean. But I fully intend to go back and read it properly at some point.
Yeah, definitely do. Because so it's a kind of dystopian novel, and is set in like a future near New England in a totalitarian state called Gilead, and which is like has overthrown the United States government.
Mm-hmm.
And it's the story of Hofred, which is the main character, who's a handmaid in this Republic of Gilead, and a handmaid is a woman that lives in a house with a commander and his wife, and her role is to basically make children for the commander. Yeah, is that a spoiler? No.
No. I think that's kind of known.
Yeah.
Going in.
And so women have no rights, and women are just there to make children and to either serve or, well, if you're the commander's wife, you're quite high up. If you're handmaid, you're quite high up as well, especially if you make a child. And then and as a woman, you're only viable if you can produce children. If not, then you're just a nothing. And the book has flashbacks of Offred's life before Gilead happened and during, and which is interesting because what I like about it is how in a way, how the changes that are happening to then become this totalitarian state were so subtle that nobody really realized, and that's why everybody got kind of stuck into this totalitarian state. And in a way, being 1985 or being 2020, you can see that how like changes is so subtle, and then suddenly that thing is happening, and you go, oh, I did not notice. And I really thought that was really clever. I think it's a really interesting and clever book. And it shows kind of how, in a way, the elite can do pretty much what they want. They can have alcohol and sex and prostitutes and prostitutes and prostitutes and eat whatever they want, whilst everybody else is kind of suffering and has to wear weird robes and can't drink alcohol and can't do anything. And it's good because it doesn't explain too much, and it kind of you kind of, it's not too wordy, it's not too, sometimes if you like have something like that, like for example Aldous Huxley, which kind of was it not, was it written pretty much at the same time?
What, as Brave New
Brave
World?
New World?
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me check.
I think it's really impressive that she wrote it in 1985, and it is probably more relevant today than it was when she wrote it, almost.
Absolutely. It's so relevant now. And Brave New World, 1932. No, that was much longer ago. Longer before. Wow.
Fair enough.
Well, whoops. But that's also
whoopsie.
about dystopian future. Oopsie. But it's so wordy. And what I like is just the simplicity on how she writes and how things just happen. And it shocked me. Some things really shocked me about this book. And I really, really liked it. And how it was made in 1985. It was written in 1985 and is so current and amazing. I really enjoyed it. And you should definitely read it because it's a really good book. And
yeah, I mean, I've watched the TV show based on it.
I haven't watched that one. Is it good?
Have you not watched it?
No.
Oh, it's amazing. It's really good. The Handmaid's Tale TV show. Oh, you should check it out. Elizabeth Moss is amazing in it. Not quite as good as she is in Her Smell, but obviously we can't repeat brilliance all the time.
Whose smell?
But I love the TV show is horrifying in parts. Like seeing some of these scenes from the book, like seeing them filmed and dramatized and stuff is awful. Makes me feel sick in parts. So I really love it.
Because that's the thing. There's a scene in the book that you go, and you don't know what's going to happen, but you kind of know what's going to happen, and then it doesn't happen, and you go, what? How? If it hasn't happened now, when is it going to happen? Like the inevitable is going to happen, but she kind of writes more and makes it very, very intense. She creates really intense moments that you go, oh my goodness, what, and yeah, she's great. It's a great book, really good, good writer.
Have you read? Is it called The Testaments?
No, I haven't read that yet. I need to.
Okay, I'm interested to know what that's like. All right, my number 2 then.
Yes.
My number 2 is my obligatory Stephen King entry on my top 5 because I love Stephen King, and it is the only Stephen King book I could ever pick. It is The Gunslinger.
Ooh.
Which is the first in the Dark Tower series of books. And if you want to know why I love it so much, the opening line is everything you need to hear because it's the best opening line to any book ever written, and it is... The man in black fled across the desert and the gunslinger followed. It's just
awesome.
Perfect writing. Because the rest of the book is that sentence spread out into a story. But that sums up, that tells you, like, it is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 words long. And it immediately evokes an entire world in your head. There's a desert, there's a man in black, there's a gunslinger, he's following him, why is he following him? It just perfectly sets up the book. I adore it. If I ever got a tattoo, it would be that line tattooed on my body because I think it's an example of perfect writing and I love it. And the rest of the book is fine as well. But it's mainly that one sentence that I adore.
So you just read that one sentence, a great book. Close the book.
Yeah. Have you read The Gunslinger?
No.
Are
I've
you
never
sure?
read... Yes.
I wondered whether I'd made you read it at some point in the past. I couldn't remember.
No, you made me read something with a sword. I don't know what it was called, like the sword of the...
Oh, yeah. Yeah, so like Stephen King's famously a horror writer. But the Dark Tower books are more sort of fantasy, Western sort of books. But as we were just talking about a minute ago of Lovecraft, because all of his books exist in the same universe, the Dark Tower is kind of the central spire column of that world that holds all of it together. So as the series goes on, more and more elements are brought in from his other books and things like that, and it becomes this huge, massive, epic tale. But to start with, in The Gunslinger, it is the simple story of a gunslinger who's essentially just meant to be Clint Eastwood in his like Good, the Bad, and the Ugly type of films. Roland of Gilead, chasing the Man in Black. Well, Randall Flagg, I think, he might just be known as the Man in Black in that book. Chasing the Man in Black across the desert, and that's about the long and short of it. He just needs to catch up with the Man in Black to ask him some questions and find some stuff out. And I love it. I just adore it. I just think it's the perfect opening chapter to this epic fantasy series that I love so much. They made it into a film starring Idris Elba and Matthew McConaughey that you should not watch ever under any circumstances. It is an aberration. And then Amazon, I think Amazon filmed a pilot for a TV show of it and then didn't fund it. It's kind of this, it's just there's never going to be a good adaptation of The Dark Tower, I think. It's just impossible. So we'll make do with the books for now. But yeah, no, there we go. The Gunslinger. I adore it. It's great. Nice. And I want to tattoo the opening line onto my body. Never will.
Where do you want to tattoo it?
I'd like to tattoo it on my arm, I guess. I don't know. Okay. On my bum. I'd like to tattoo it on my bum.
On my bum.
I'd like it to say, the Man in Black fled across the desert on the left, and the gunslinger followed on the right. That's my plan.
Perfect.
Yeah. What's your number two?
My number two is a book we have talked about before because it's your number 5. My number 2 is Northern Lights by Philip Pullman.
What a delight. You've got it higher than me.
I love it. Yeah, I love it. Maybe because I read it as an adult, I really liked it. I don't know. I think it's a great book, and I've enjoyed all of his books that I've read, and even the new ones, which are a little bit harder to read. Which the latest one is the Secret Commonwealth. But I think he's a great writer, and I love Northern Lights.
I read and adored La Belle Sauvage, the first in the new series, but then I am struggling. I've read about 30% of the Secret Commonwealth, and I'm really struggling with it but not to do with the writing or the story, all to do with what it's doing to certain characters that I have grown up loving, and I'm just.
But I think you just have to power through, because towards the end, and it just gets like I've been telling you for months. It's like just power through, because I've had the same struggle.
It drains me. It really drains me. It makes me so sad. Yeah,
but I think it shows how of an amazing writer he is. It just makes you feel so like, oh, but what? No, I can't. How is the other? How are they feeling? So But then you get towards the end, and it's good, and I think I'm looking forward to the next one. But it is hard to read. Yeah, but yeah.
Have you watched any of the
Northern Lights?
Have you watched any of the BBC adaptation of?
No, I want to. I have to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I need to watch more of it. I've only watched a couple of episodes of the first series, but the second series is starting soon, so I need to catch up and get on it properly.
Yeah.
Right. Definitely. Awesome. Good. Solid choice. Number 2, Northern Lights, Philip Pullman. Like it. Right. My number 1 is my number 1. It is the only book that could be my number 1 because it makes me cry when I read it every time, and my love for it has defined my life, and that's become more challenging in recent years, but it remains, there's nothing that can make me stop loving it, and it is Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix.
Is that number 4?
No, it's number 5. It's
number 5.
It's number 5. It's a lot of people's least favourite in the series. And people generally don't rank it that highly, but for me, it's my favourite simply because it's the longest book. So you get to spend, in terms of like similar to like what we're talking about with Coriander. I can't believe I'm comparing Coriander with Harry Potter, but like looking at the smaller moments in between the big dramatic moments, I feel like Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix has a lot of that. Like there's a lot of just exploring his year in Hogwarts in a bit more depth and detail than in other books. And I think some people might find that a bit dull, but I love that stuff. I live for that stuff. And, you know, Number 10 Grimmauld Place and all the cleaning of the house and all of that stuff. I just love it. And yeah, it's taken as a whole, the Harry Potter series is my favourite book. But if I'm picking out one specific book, it is Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix. I started reading them when I was in school, when I was about 11. And each time one would come out, I would buy it and read it in a day, and then read it again. And it's just
in a day. Wow.
Yeah, I remember Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire came out, and I read it in a day because I just got it and didn't stop reading it until I'd finished it. And the same was true for most of the rest of the series after that. And like one of the defining memories of my childhood was walking home from primary school on my own the day that Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban came out, and going into my local independent bookshop and picking up my copy that I'd like pre-ordered, and they gave it me in this little brown paper bag, and I remember carrying it home and just in my head thinking, oh, what's he going to have done in his third year, and what's his summer going to have been like, and all of these things, and I just was so incredibly excited to read it, and it didn't let me down. It is great. So yeah, Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix is my number one favourite book of all time. I completely and utterly adore that book.
You've got more controversial authors than me this week.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Okay, fine.
No, I do know what you're talking about, but I'm not naming her. I'm not talking about her. Can't stand her anymore. Sick to death of hearing about her. So it's just the book.
Yeah.
I'm not discussing the author. She can go and live in a cave. Who's your number one?
I think she does live in a cave, not knowing exactly what's happening. I don't know if she wants to push buttons. I don't know. Crazy, eh?
Yeah, she's awful.
My number one is another Japanese entry of somebody that I read most of their books, and his name is, the author is Haruki Murakami.
Of course.
The book is yeah, of course, is 1Q84.
Okay.
Yes. A bit like the Handmaid's Tale. 1Q84 is kind of a dystopian novel, and it's a fictional year, 1984, which kind of like is also an homage to George Orwell, but there are two parallel worlds. So there's 1984 and then another parallel world, which is 1Q84.
Yeah.
And it's the story of a woman that is called Aoname. It starts with her being in a taxi in traffic and trying to go somewhere, and then the taxi driver tells her that she can to get where she wants to go, she can go down the fire escape of this route, and but he said be careful because things might change. And then she goes down this fire escape, and then she starts noticing that things are not exactly how they're supposed to be, and then in parallel, so then she starts living in this parallel world from 1984, and in parallel to that world, the actual 1984, there's the narrative of Tengo, which he's a maths teacher who gets entangled into is he a maths teacher?
I don't know. I haven't read it.
No, Tengo. No, it's not maths teacher. Why am I talking about? Tengo, who is an aspiring writer, who he's becomes wrapped up in this girl's life who is supposed to have written a short novella or a short story, but then he realized that she hasn't written this short story, and she hasn't even thought about this short story, and so that also gets entangled in this, which she was part of a cult, and is basically a really interesting Murakami novel, which I absolutely love. And I don't want to say too much because I think it's so intense. It's a really intense novel, and I think it's my favorite because there's still some bits of it that really get to me. And I haven't read
Yeah.
it. I read it about maybe 8 years ago, and I
Yeah.
still vividly remember certain bits of it. And
Yeah.
I feel he's such a great writer that he can pretty much make you feel a certain way, and that's how you feel. And
Yeah.
every time you think about that, you feel that way. And that's why I love his books. And that's why I love this particular book, because there were some bits that I read and then I couldn't sleep. It was just, for me, terrifying. But it was nothing
Wow.
that was necessarily terrifying, but it just the way that he made you feel about it. It's an extremely long book, so it takes ages to read, but it's totally worth it. And
I mean, I was going to say that
love Murakami.
the one thing I know about it is that it's exceptionally long, and
It's
hearing you
so
describe it,
long.
it makes sense because it sounds like you've just described about 6 different books.
Yes. It's so long, but you can
Like,
just
there's a
like,
girl
you
in a
can just say
taxi, and then there's a teacher, but he's not a teacher, but he wrote a book, but then he didn't write a book, and then it's but it's really scary.
yeah, and it's amazing, and I love how he does things. And some people say that he's overrated, and some people say that he's just too wordy and he talks a bit too much about how much he knows about music. And I love that about him. I love about how much he knows about things. And I've read most of his books, and I think he's a great writer, and he took me to places with his books that were incredible. And with this one, it's just amazing. And the way that he likes to write parallel stories, and he does that quite often in his books.
Yeah.
And in this one, then, the parallel stories then start merging, and it's just great mind. It's just a great mind. And that's why I think this is one of my favorite books, and he's one of my favorite authors.
Yeah, but I think stuff like what you're saying about people criticising him for always talking about how much he knows about music, and whiskey is another is that a big thing as well? I feel like more so than a lot of other mediums, with a book, when you have a favourite author, reading a book by them should feel like encountering a friend again, an old friend or something. And like,
Yeah.
It's good when they have those common things that they go back to in all their books. That's what I love about like Lovecraft is there's certain turns of phrase and ways of talking about things that he does all the time, and that's what makes me enjoy his books. And the same is true of Stephen King, and obviously also true of Murakami. I think that's a strength where they can have like a voice to their writing and a personality behind their. Doesn't matter what the book is, you can always tell it's their book, and that's what makes them such good authors. So I think that's a strength of his. I've only read Hard-Boiled Wonderland and the End of the World, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And in terms of like parallel stories are a big theme in that one. So yeah, it was good.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah,
but I should read 1Q84, but it's a long one.
It's so long. It's so long.
So, do you want to? Shall I run down my list from 5 to 1? So at number 5, I had Northern Lights by Philip Pullman. At number 4, I had The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy by Douglas Adams. Number 3, The Call of Cthulhu by H.P. Lovecraft. Number 2, The Gunslinger by Stephen King. And number 1, Harry Potter and the Order of the Phoenix.
Fantastic. My top 5. Number 5, Matilda by Roald Dahl. Number 4, Convenience Store Woman by Sayaka Murata. My number 3, The Handmaid's Tale by Margaret Atwood. My number 2, Northern Lights by Philip Pullman. And my number 1, 1Q84 by Haruki Murakami. Done.
Lovely, lovely stuff. Honourable mentions. My honourable mentions list this week is quite short, and not because I don't like a lot of books, but because I found writing my list fairly quick, and I didn't have to think of many alternate titles, if you see what I mean.
Okay. Yeah.
So I've just got a few other ones that I really love. A Head Full of Ghosts by Paul Tremblay is a great horror book. It's one of those great stories where it seems like one thing, but then you kind of discover something else is going on as well at the same time. It's an amazing novel, A Head Full of Ghosts. So I would recommend that to anyone. The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald is one of the classics that people study in school that I actually didn't read in school, and when I did read it on my own volition, I adored it. Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep by Philip K. Dick, the book that inspired Blade Runner. The Book Thief by Marcus Zusak is a fantastic kind of World War II tale. And The Way of Kings by Brandon Sanderson, a book I once tried to make you read that you hated. And that's my honourable mentions list.
Well, it was so wordy. It was like, the sword, they lighted, and it was grey, but not grey enough to see it in the dark, but grey enough to cut. I was just like, stop talking about this bloody
It
sword.
sounds awesome. I love
Sorry.
it. You're making me so happy to hear more of it.
It was too much. Okay, so my honorable mentions are Little Women by Louisa May Alcott. We know what it is about. Emma and Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. I love those books. Emma is about Emma, and Pride and Prejudice is about the story of 5 sisters.
They've just done a film of Emma, haven't they?
Oh, I don't know. Have they?
Yeah, they do. It came out just before the pandemic, so I think it missed a lot of people. It's meant to be good, so you should look it up. It stars Anya Taylor-Joy, who is wonderful.
Ooh. Okay, yeah, but Emma is about a girl that is not really, doesn't really follow the societal conventions at the time.
Oh, does she work in a convenience store?
Yes, shut up. Kitchen by Banana Yoshimoto, which is an amazing book about this girl that likes cooking, but a lot of stuff around it. And anything written by Banana Yoshimoto, I love. Shogun, which is a book by
James Clavell.
The names. Yes.
James Clavell.
Clavel.
Clavell, I always say, but I don't know.
James Clavell. Shogun, a book by James Clavell or Clavel, which talks about English people in Japan a long time ago in the 1600s. Really interesting. I really liked it. Still a massive book. Took me ages to read. Wuthering Heights by Emily Bronte and Siddhartha by Herman S.
Nice. Good books on that list, Alex. Lots of classics on that list, I think. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I love my classics. I love them. I love them.
Good. All right.
So,
time for homework assignments.
Yes.
I'll go first. I would like you to read The Call of Cthulhu by H.P. Lovecraft.
Okay. I'm excited about that, actually.
Good. It's in the public
Is it scary?
domain. No, I don't think so. It's more of a mood and a tone that it's not like, I don't think it's scary. No, it's definitely not scary. You will not be scared
to the
by
Galaxy?
it. Sorry?
Can I not read a Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy?
No. Call of Cthulhu. Call of Cthulhu is in the public domain, so you'll be able to get it for free, and it's it will probably take you about an hour to 2 hours to read it. It's not a super long story.
Okay.
So, Call of Cthulhu, and I'd like to know what you think of it. I think I'd be interested to know what somebody who isn't naturally a fan of horror and that kind of thing makes of that story. So yeah.
If I don't sleep, it's your fault.
I really don't think honestly, don't go into it expecting to be scared, because I really don't think you will be. The joy of it is not in how scary it is.
Okay. And I would like you to read Convenience Store Woman.
Okay. I'm glad you said that, because hang on. I've disappeared.
Yeah, I can only see.
There we go. Can you see me on the webcam? I'm going to buy it.
Yeah.
Now. I've bought it. It's buying.
Oh, fantastic.
I've got it. Because as
as
soon as you
it's not
said
very
what
long.
it was, I'm determined to read it.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So thank you for that. I look
Cool.
forward to reading Convenience Store Woman. And let's talk about what's happening next week, because it's going to affect homework a little bit, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So this homework assignment, partly because it's books, which can take a bit longer, although I think we've both assigned each other books that shouldn't take too long. But anyway, it's going to run over 2 weeks because next week will be a slightly different episode where we won't be discussing homework, because our top 5 next week will be on video games.
Yes.
Yeah, top 5 video games, because I love video games. Alex, do you love video games?
No, because I can't play them.
No, because you don't really play much of them, but you respect the love for them, right?
I do respect the love for them, and that's why we're doing an episode on them, because I think video games need to be talked about.
Yes. So to help us in achieving that goal of sharing some top 5 video game lists, we're going to have, for the first time ever, it's a Culture Bucket first, a special guest. Yeah. Yes.
The specialist of guests.
The specialist of guests, our mutual, very close friend, Dan, will be joining us to talk video games. So Dan and I will be sharing our top 5 video games list. To specify more specifically, we're not including any Nintendo games, because to also include Nintendo games on the list would be impossible. So at some point in the future, I think we'll do a Nintendo special. Alex will be able to join in because she will receive our lists in advance and have using the power of YouTube, she will inform herself on these games, and then from her view, she will tell us how ridiculous we are for liking each game on our list. Yeah?
Yes, 100%.
100%.
I'm looking forward to that.
I'm looking forward to it a lot as well. I've already sent you my list, so...
Yeah, I've got your list.
Yeah, you've got my list. You'll be getting down this list at some point soon. And I'm really excited to do that episode. I think it's going to be cool and fun. And then we'll come back after that and discuss the Call of Cthulhu and Convenience Store Woman on a future episode when we get back into the normal run of things. So, yeah, that's it. That's it for this week. Thank you so much for joining us again. Please do. We keep saying it, but please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts and all the places, and tell all of your friends about us. If you know anyone that you think would enjoy this kind of hangout show on pop culture, then just tell them and see if they listen to us. We'd love to get more listeners, and we really appreciate those of you who are listening already. And as I keep saying as well, message us, email us, get in touch with us. There's links to all of our social places in the podcast notes. Let us know what you think, and send us any of your own lists as well for us to read out, because we'd love to start doing that.
Yes, please.
Yeah, and go find us on Instagram. Talk to us, comment on our stuff, look at the amazing illustrations Alex does on Instagram. And
thank you, G.
You're very welcome. And for this week you'll have hopefully seen a picture of me with tentacles all over my face to look like Cthulhu. That's what I'm hoping for.
Okay, so you're ready to putting in your request.
There's a very specific description of Cthulhu in the book, so you'll know what he looks like by the time you've read that.
Fantastic.
So yeah, thank you so much. Join us next time for video game chat. And yeah, okay. Love you.
Bye.